is there not merit to the argument of the United States shouldn't be the policeman to the world? The United States should have the best military in the world, yes, but should we be spending so much because we're having to serve as a proxy military for so many other nations? That's my question. I know that there have been some people that have said some stuff that feel awfully pro-Russia, but...
Trump has. I'm not even talking about anyone else in the administration.
Yeah, but what has Trump said that is pro-Russia?
There's conversation of removing all U.S. personnel out of Europe, which was there out of agreement with the EU as a protection against Russia. An obvious abandonment of Ukraine, pretense to leave NATO.
Trump is forcing the EU to man up, get your militaries in order. You've got an aggressor that's just to your east, that's an ocean away from us, so we don't give a rat's ass. The argument is, should Europe be manning up, putting their money where their mouths are, stepping everything up, and Europe holds off Russia on their own? Not totally on their own. I'm sure there'll be aid from the U.S. Even Trump in the Oval Office meeting, the infamous one, said, yes, there's still going to be aid and we're still going to give weapons and all that. He said that. Now, I don't know about now, but he said it
before the fight.
Before the fight at the end.
So
answer my question about, should the EU dial their militaries way, way up so they can handle their own business at the benefit of the United States taxpayer?
Like, Trump doesn't give a shit about Americans.
What if he does?
You think he'd let Medicaid cutting go through?
Yeah, probably.
Can't care about Americans if you let Medicaid cutting go through.
Well,
I mean, that's my direct challenge. I mean, like...
I think there's a difference between, in Trump's mind, I think that Trump...
Oh, I mean, sure, but I don't care what's in Trump's mind, though. In a measure, I mean, I care, like, he could come up with whatever rationalization. Like, materially hurting people.
No, I don't understand the rationale behind. Let's just cut $880 billion from Medicaid.
I just want to drop a little bit of a truth nuke on that. That hurts red states primarily. Because blue states tend to be wealthier and tend to have their own state-funded Medicaid system. Now, everyone will be hurt.
Like Massachusetts.
But like California has the money for their own Medicaid system. New York can fund their own system. I mean, they're going to get a cut to the funding. Everybody would, but they're hurt less. Like Louisiana or Mississippi or Arkansas don't exactly have the budget for that. It's going to disproportionately harm Republicans. And it's not even that like haha, you deserve this. Like, I don't want Republicans to have their health care cut.
I don't want any Americans to have
I don't want any Americans. And I'm upset at Trump and like the elected officials, and upset in a way at Republican voters for just like eating it up. But I guess they're not thinking, most Americans aren't thinking anything past the headline. But upset for them of like, you voted for him and he's hurting you first. Like, all the blue states tend to be all the wealthiest states.
I understand what you mean, but the conversation we're not having is, do the voters in red states get the message that $880 billion has been cut from Medicaid? That was because Trump made those cuts, and, you know, the Trump government made those cuts, and now you lost your Medicaid because of the cuts.
Yeah.
Do they get the message? I don't think
so.
That enough of them, or many of them, will.
No.
But
or like the most news that they'll watch is Fox, if it's national.
Right.
And Fox definitely won't share that information. They'll just say, oh, we're cutting out the fraud. I'm like, I promise you there's not $88 billion of fraud.
880.
Sorry. Over 800.
I'll correct you this time, I know.
$880 billion of fraud.
No, there's not.
I promise you that's not possible.
Not even close.
Just a little context. Everybody can look it up. The federal government is rather efficient compared to state governments. Employee counts haven't ballooned quite like state employee counts have. Like, it's for as big as the government is.
The number of employees in the federal government have tracked with the population increases.
Yeah, have been incredibly stable and consistent.
Right. It's like not any more bloated than it was when Reagan was there.
Yeah, the federal government's rather efficient, actually. And I would argue the worst parts of it are like the Department of Defense, where we're just like, the Pentagon keeps failing their audits, and it's just a black hole that money's dumped into. Where's it going? Who's it going to? Because it's all redacted, because it's all national security. So we're not allowed to know. Who's it going to? Who are we paying? What's it for? And I'm sure you can hear all kinds of stories of people in the military. It's not like they have like bougie shit. They have the cheapest boots, the cheapest clothes.
F-35s. And
Yeah, there's like 9 of them. But like for the soldiers, they have all the cheapest stuff. It's all terrible. Not that they need like Louis Vuitton boots, but it's my point. Like,
I mean, not that they even need it.
they're paid horrible. Their benefits aren't good because the VA is underfunded. If the budget was being spent to like all the soldiers are well compensated, all their health care is good, that's a different story. It's just vanishing into a black hole and no one's allowed to know what it is. That's another thing.
Are we starting the show now?
Yeah, we'll make this a little thing.
Yeah, it's already going.
Yeah.
So what if I said to you that Trump is trying to undo the militarization of the United States and the United States' military role in the world?
Say that again.
Trump is trying to demilitarize the United States relative to the rest of the militaries in the world. Or another way to put it, Trump is trying to get more countries to put more money into their militaries so the United States doesn't have to be the proxy military for all these other little countries. For most of Europe, and Canada is a big one, he talks about how they don't even hardly have a military at all. And he says, well, they don't even need a military because they know the United States will guard them if anything happens. That's a part of his argument for why he wants to bring them in and be a state. It's like, well, if you guys aren't even going to spend any money on defense, okay.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate then.
Okay.
Let me play Trump fan for our Trump fans.
Holy shit.
What?
We spend $968 billion a year on the military. For what?
Because we're not just the military for the United States of America. We're the military for Canada. We're the military for
EU.
EU in many ways.
Yeah.
We're a military all over the place in the Pacific.
Sure.
So you want to know why we have to spend $900 billion a year on the military? Because we have to be the military for everybody. So I think that's the argument for people I think that's part of Trump's play is if the other countries can step up their presence and their military spending, we still will dwarf them. We still will dwarf them combined. But Trump is saying, you got to hold up your end. We're not just going to spend U.S. taxpayer dollars to build a gigantic military to police the world. This is a gripe that we've had for a long time. This has been a gripe since the 80s, 90s, like the United States being the policeman.
Post-Cold War, like 91, like post-Cold War particularly.
Yeah. So is there not merit to the argument of the United States shouldn't be the policeman to the world? The United States should have the best military in the world, yes. But should we be spending so much because we're having to serve as a proxy military for so many other nations? That's my question.
Okay. 2, who are we protecting the world from? You tell me. Because we're not protecting Germany from France.
I think,
for example, right? And we're not protecting Canada from like Iceland.
Nope.
So who are we protecting our friends from?
I think the answer to the question,
I think there's 2 countries,
we already know the country, Iran.
Yeah, 2 big ones.
Russia.
Iran and
North Korea.
Russia, yeah.
No, I know, they're not.
Yeah, well, North Korea, yes. Like technically.
China is on the list, but we both know that China is playing the long game.
If there was any kind of war between the U.S. and China, the world, like Earth might not exist as a planet. I promise you, no war's happening.
China will never go to war
It doesn't help. It doesn't benefit them in any way.
It doesn't benefit them. So they'll never go to war with us.
Yeah, they get mopped up, but it also doesn't benefit them.
It doesn't benefit them in any way. Nope. So there's no, I mean, where would we fight the war? On what land or ocean would we be fighting the war?
Pacific, Japan, and Taiwan, and Singapore, and Vietnam, and those countries.
For what purpose, right? So
yeah, for what gain? So I think China in a military combat situation, that's nonsense. Russia is currently fighting a European country, and we've just allied Russia.
Have we?
Explicitly.
You think?
Several times.
I think there's a pushback on that.
So
I know that there have been some people that have said some stuff that feel awfully pro-Russia, but
Trump has. I'm not even talking about anyone else in the administration.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Trump.
Yeah, but what has Trump said that is pro-Russia?
That's pro-Russia?
Yeah, I mean, what has he said that has aligned himself with Russia?
There is conversation of removing all U.S. personnel out of Europe, which was there out of agreement with the EU. EU is a protection against Russia. An obvious abandonment of Ukraine. Pretense to leave NATO. What's the point of NATO? Pretty much the first line is like defense against Russia. Kind of the first line. All the actions Trump's wanting to take, making a decision with Russia and decisions of not wanting to have troops everywhere, there's only one person it helps because it doesn't cut our military budget. He's not taking the funding that we're spending on Europe and cutting it out of the budget. That's one thing. He's just moving them.
Moving
the troops out, the planes out, the tanks out. He's not cutting that piece of the military off and removing the money from it.
Okay, I'm going to play the MAGA advocate.
Okay.
Is it true or not true that the UK, France, Germany, Ukraine, Poland, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, everybody that met in the meeting that adjourned just a few hours ago?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually don't know the answer to this question, but I
might have the answer for you.
But I think it might be true that if the UK and France, Germany, Poland, and the other nations of Europe and Baltics, et cetera, if they got together a la NATO and or their own militaries,
EU or some
and or their own militaries, if they all mobilized together, particularly if they spent more money on their military, like Trump is demanding,
5%,
then the EU and UK plus Ukraine would have no problem holding off Russia.
Oh, I agree. If Europe had the will to mobilize an army, they could capitulate Russia in a month.
Here's my argument. Trump is forcing the EU to man up, get your militaries in order. You've got an aggressor that's just to your east, that's an ocean away from us, so we don't give a rat's ass. Now, I'm not advocating for this.
You're the MAGA advocate.
I'm simply playing a devil's advocate in this argument.
Yeah.
So the argument is, should Europe be manning up, putting their money where their mouths are, stepping everything up, and Europe holds off Russia on their own? Not totally on their own. I'm sure there'll be aid from the U.S. Even Trump in the Oval Office meeting, the infamous one, said, yes, there's still going to be aid and we're still going to give weapons and all that. He said that. Now, I don't know about now, but he said it
before the fight
at the end.
So
answer my question about, should the EU dial their militaries way up so they can handle their own business?
Okay, so this is how I'm going to answer.
At the benefit of the United States taxpayer. So now I don't have to send a few $100 billion to Ukraine, or not near as much. I don't have to send United States troops to the front line if they don't want to go. What do you think?
We're going to look at this from two approaches. We're going to look at a slightly historical context and a material one. I'll be quick. What Trump is proposing we do foreign policy-wise, Europe's problems are Europe's problems. We've done it twice. Famously, very, very, very famously, two of the deadliest wars have come out of that policy. World War I and World War II.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying we're going to have World War III because of it, but famously, the moment World War I is a little bit more of, we hadn't become onto the world stage quite like that yet. But definitely World War II.
Oh, yeah.
The world kind of lights on fire for a few years when the U.S. abandons Europe. Our allies, by the way, our good friends. Let's be very clear.
Yes.
Our good friends.
Yes.
That's the historical context. This historically doesn't work for any purpose. And the U.S. economy doesn't explode and grow like Trump wants you to believe by us isolating from Europe. It explodes and grows the moment we wrap our tentacles all around Europe and help. Then the economy explodes. Curious.
When we go to war,
well, it's even
the war economy turns on.
No, post-war. That's when the economy's boomed.
Post-war economies
exploded. But what happened when we were post-war? We were like wrapped up in Europe to unreal levels. Roaring 20s. We did have a crash after, so ignore that. But roaring 20s. And then the golden age of America for like 30 or 40 years. Everyone was like, well, we're going to do what they're doing because clearly they know how to run an economy. Our country does better the more involved we are with Europe, historically speaking. That doesn't mean it's true for the future. I'm just saying it's never been not true. That's my argument.
It seems that the United States has been reluctant to enter European wars.
That's also true. For going back forever.
Going back to none other than
like
George Washington himself.
Yep.
You know, we stayed out of it a bit in World War I. Obviously, we stayed out of it in World War II until Japan.
Both times we were attacked.
Right. But also, I'm going to make the argument that the world, and I think that you kind of alluded to this, you kind of admitted that, you know, the world is different. And so what I'm wondering is...
It's not a guarantee that it's true. I'll just tell you that multiple different periods of history have existed, and it's never been not true.
Yeah.
From wooden ships to ironclads to, you know, warships to what we have now, it's never been not true.
Now, I know the stance of the United States, like the heart of the country is we stand against dictators and aggressors and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we say.
Kind of the spirit of this country.
Yeah, but we also have to look in the mirror and who has been the aggressor and imperialistic all over the world since the 50s.
We're really giving other empires a run for their money.
So that's what I'm saying. And so I don't know, like I think if we're looking in the mirror, I don't think that we can say that entirely. So here's what my assertion is as a MAGA advocate.
I still have another aspect to this.
I'm going to let you get there.
Okay.
But the only point, I'll just make this one thing, is that Trump has always been open about it, that he doesn't like war. He doesn't want to go to war. He doesn't like, he doesn't like that. I actually think for all that I don't like about Trump, and there's plenty, that slice of him where he seems like he doesn't want to be in wars and he doesn't want to send our troops to go get, I feel like that may be something. So what's your other point, unless you have a pushback on my comment?
Oh, man. I'm going to pause on that answer. I'm going to finish the economic answer for the original one of, is it good to let Europe fight Europe?
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's wrap that up. So
I pose this question to you of the devil's advocate. Who makes the best weapons in the world?
Yeah, easy. United States. USA, baby.
U.S. military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Where in the world do you think Europe's going to buy all of their shit?
Yeah, they're going to try to license
They
things
want
from the United States.
best weapons in the world. Who makes the best weapons in the world? We do. So where are they going to buy those licenses from?
Well,
you want like the third best weapons?
No. But
hold on.
Okay.
From us, right?
Right. Okay. But that plays into Trump, and I'll tell you why, but go ahead.
Okay. So it directly enriches the military-industrial complex.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And what do they want more than anything?
Yeah, war.
War. So let's just take a second to process what I just said. The military-industrial complex, by the way, owns most politicians in this country. I'd say damn near every Republican and like 80% of the Democrats. Like Bernie and AOC and Jasmine Crockett. Like I don't think that they're taking money from the MIC. Most Democrats, any institutional Democrat, you best believe it. Nancy Pelosi, oh yeah. Lockheed Martin's knocking on her door every day. Raytheon, you know, I think every Republican, probably. Maybe there's one or two that I'm not thinking of right now. Yeah. But I would say almost every single one.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what's best for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin?
War.
Is war. Who do you think is funding all the people who want America to not be defending and stopping war in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Or totally stopping any possibility of a large war breaking out. That's the U.S. We could stop it all if we wanted. No one can go toe-to-toe with us.
Right. Defense contractors. Right.
So, but what benefits them more is if we just let Europe, you guys can fight it out. And fight it out means war. Mm-hmm. And who makes the most money off of war?
The United States.
But not the government, the private companies who own our politicians. So let's think about this for a second. Mm-hmm. Does it really make sense? Does it really actually benefit any of us? And if war breaks out in Europe, that's now one of the largest economic blocks, just kind of not really available for buying anything.
Because they're busy spending money on
war. Think just below the surface. I'm not saying we should please everybody. That's not my statement.
You can't please all industries.
Right. But I'm also saying it's not pro-American to abandon your friends in Europe. It's fair to have Europe build a little bit more of a defensive bloc, so we're not shouldering everything. It also is like directly harmful to us and the taxpayers. The same people who are bought by Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are the people doing tax cuts for the billionaires and cutting your Medicaid. It's the same people. Just below the surface. You don't have to think any more than that. Just below the surface. Mm-hmm. Is it actually beneficial to you, the Republican out there, if we leave Europe and then the economy starts to hurt and then we deficit spend more because we have more tax breaks and then more politicians are bought out by the military-industrial complex?
So you're saying it could benefit the average American because
I'm saying
Lockheed Martin needs to crank out more missiles for NATO, even though the United States is completely uninvolved in it, but they have to hire a bunch more Americans to build more missiles for France to defend against Russia.
Do you think the missiles are built in the U.S.?
I actually,
well, I'm not totally.
I mean, there's actually a Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, there's one in town.
Plant in our county.
Yeah, or in the county. Yeah, there's one in the county.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of patients who worked there. So yeah, I think a lot of it is built here.
Maybe, but you have to be like an engineer to work there.
Well,
do you have an engineering degree?
No. The people that I had, they're just screwing screws on the assembly line. So they're just.
Okay, so maybe it opens up a couple jobs, but then it tanks.
I know, not many.
The trade-off is like one job for 5 jobs. Is that a trade that we like?
Yeah.
I thought Donald Trump was the master negotiator.
I mean, what's even made in the United States that Europe buys? Do we have any idea about it? All right, so let's...
Chicken sandwiches, McDonald's, after it's been processed outside the country.
Yeah, so...
I'm frying your fries at Chick-fil-A in the restaurant. So that's made in the U.S., I guess.
So I'll just, as a MAGA advocate, as a reluctant MAGA advocate here, just on this show, I'll say I don't know what a European war would directly do to everyday Americans, because I don't know, and I don't think that you know either, I don't know what specific exports would be affected where we're manufacturing something in the United States or stuff in the United States, and we sell our stuff, other than weapons, we sell our stuff to Europe.
Thinking about it wrong.
Okay.
And it's not going to make sense because it doesn't make any sense. Okay. So it's okay if you don't understand because, ready for it? No one does. So it's okay. So don't feel bad about yourself. Nobody understands.
Welcome to the podcast where nobody understands.
Yeah, no one knows. And if anyone says that they know, lying.
Or
they're selling you something because they don't know.
Yeah.
The biggest issue is investors rule the economy. Speculation rules the economy.
Private equity.
If war breaks out, insecurity in a lot of places breaks out.
Agree.
Investment stops.
Investment in what stops, though? You can't just say
everything that you interact with in the world.
So
everything that you touch and use, right? So
can I still buy my Apple MacBook?
Probably not.
If there's a war in Europe, I can't buy my Apple Mac.
They'll be more expensive. I mean, you could buy them, sure, but they've just doubled in price. Your iPhone also just cost $500 more. I
don't think so. I don't think a war in Europe. Well, I mean, this is made in China. Oh, by the way, this is I learned this is a total just a side note. Okay. How much do you think it costs to manufacture an iPhone, which is made in China, by the way?
It's dirt nasty cheap, I think. Probably like $100.
It's going to shock you.
Probably, or way less than that.
It's going to knock the underwear off of your body.
Well, how much is it?
$10. So, but it's in China. So I feel like Trump is certainly going to tiptoe around China because so much of our economy is intertwined with China. So much of it. But Europe, I think that's why he can do what he's doing. I mean, it's not to say that you...
Oh, hold on. I figured out the answer. I remember now. But finish.
Oh, well, no, that's it.
So all the richest motherfuckers in this country that could delete the economy if they wanted to tomorrow.
The elites. We're talking about...
hedge funds.
Okay, so you're talking about BlackRock.
The invisible companies where the money is like just magically appears.
BlackRock, etc.
The people who pay to not be on the Forbes richest people's list. Those people. The people who pay Forbes don't put my name up there.
The real elites.
The hidden ones, right? Because they're real. BlackRock, Vanguard, those are good examples. Hedge funds, private investment. Elon is a part of it, for sure. Where do they hide all of their money?
Cayman Islands.
Right? Europe is all intertwined in our economy, too, and all the rich people, particularly the rich people in investment. They're all intertwined.
Okay.
And if Europe descends into war, it doesn't help us to run the economy the way that we are. It would collapse. It would crush. We would be hurt significantly.
I don't know that we will or won't. I think that's the point. I think that's the argument. I don't know.
Global insecurity hurts investment. When investment stops, the economy stalls.
When you say economy, this is a point you touched on last week. Are you talking about
not real?
Yeah, you're talking about the real economy, or like your real economy in your wallet that pays rent to your local apartment?
It will. What'll happen is,
is your rent going to go up? Is your gas going to go up?
Your gas going to get more expensive.
Gas could go higher during war.
Gas could get very expensive.
Gas could go higher during war.
Yep. Probably a lot of your food prices because we don't manufacture everything in the U.S. You're insane if you think all the food comes from the U.S.
Yeah, but I think most of our food comes from the Western Hemisphere.
What Western Hemisphere are you talking about? Us in the Americas?
Yeah, Canada all the way down
Oh,
to...
we're tariffing the shit out of Canada, so anything from Canada is toast. Most of our oil comes from Canada, by the way. So gas will be expensive.
Some oils come from Canada.
Most of our import comes from Canada.
We get a lot of imports from Canada and Mexico, both of them.
Oil, I think it's Canada's 1 and Mexico's 2, by the way, for oil imports.
For oil imports. But just to be clear, though...
We produce a lot, but we also import a fuck ton of oil.
We import certain hydrocarbons, but not all hydrocarbons.
If gas gets more expensive, then it costs more to fill up your car. It also costs all the delivery companies more to deliver. It costs all the electric companies more to manufacture energy. It costs all the companies who use that energy to make things have to pay more on their bills. So it's not more than just your gas is going to be $6. It's going to add $5 in individual grocery store item. Think about all the energy it's required to like make milk. All the electricity that goes into that and transporting and cooling the milk. That will be more expensive. So now your milk, which is already kind of expensive, will go up to like $8 or $9 because there's ripple effects. So your gas is expensive. It's also expensive for absolutely everybody else in the country.
My milk delivery company has to pay more for fuel.
You have to, and the people who use the electricity to cool off the milk have to pay more for the electricity, and they have to turn a profit, so they have to up their prices.
When energy gets more expensive, everything gets more expensive.
Yeah, it'll absolutely blast.
I don't know that it will.
100% it will.
I mean,
if that much, a lot of oil will surprisingly be diverted to the war because they'll be buying all of it.
Yeah.
And we don't produce near enough in this country to just sustain us. That's why we import so much.
Well, Elon Musk said it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a while.
Yeah. So that's the thing is like, you got to think if your gas gets expensive, so does everybody else. But then everyone has to turn a profit. That's how business works, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm paying more for electricity, I'm charging you more to deliver it.
All right.
Or I'm charging more to buy it. And if you're delivering it to Publix, you're going to charge Publix more. Because you got to make money. Publix has got to make money. So like, I'm charging the consumer more. But now think about that for every item in the store, because all of it has to be delivered. And a lot of the materials for this, even if we make it here in America, all of the metals in the circuit board, it's all mined everywhere else in the world. And all that costs energy. So think about it that way. Is every item you touch is going to is hurt. And then if everything's more expensive, inflation goes up. Yeah. And then if inflation goes up, then your money's worth less. Then things get more expensive.
Yeah, I get it.
That's how it would be. It would just be a snowball effect.
We strayed off of the path slightly.
Oh, yeah. And you also said that Trump once is a pro-peace president.
Well,
he does want to deploy military personnel to fight cartels, which is directly harming U.S. soldiers. So he doesn't give a shit about peace. It's just peace where he thinks he wants it.
Yeah, well,
because the cartels will kill American soldiers. Let's just pretend where he pulls that off.
I don't see. He won't. I don't see a scenario where cartels start to kill U.S. military soldiers.
100% they will. Well, if soldiers start marching into the forests of Mexico, 100% they're going to get killed.
If soldiers start marching into the forests of Mexico, I don't see U.S. soldiers marching into the forests.
But the fact that he threatens about it and talks about it all the time is not a pro-peace thing.
Well, but
a pro-peace president wouldn't do that.
Well, so I'm not saying he's pro-peace. I'm saying he's anti-war. There's a distinction.
There is a distinction. He doesn't give a shit about peace. He just...
There's something in him, and I'm sure it has to do with money, but there seems to be, again, for the MAGA people watching, I think that there's something in him that seems to be anti... I mean, he didn't start any wars when he was the president last time, and Russia didn't invade anybody during his 4-year stretch. They took over Crimea.
They were fighting Ukraine the entire time of his presidency.
I mean, were they though?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was no invasion. I mean, that happened under Biden.
Well,
I mean, there was no invasion like there is now. I mean, I'm sure there was a tension line happening along the Crimea.
It was way more than a tension line. Way more than that. So the Donbass, the famous Donbass of Ukraine.
Yep.
Since 2014, Russia has been dumping money into private companies and insurgents to fight the Ukrainian military since 2014. So it started with Obama, all through Trump's presidency, and then all through Biden's. And then the Russian military, with their badge, everything, invasion started in 22.